Welcome to the Spent the Rent podcast. I am your host, Patty Rose. My guest today is House District 12 Precinct Chair for the Democratic Party of Lane County, Irene Henjum. Irene, welcome to the show.
Hi.
So this is really cool.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, this is really cool. Thank you for doing this. It's New Year's Day. I took a huge break. I took like 3 weeks off from the podcast, which I haven't done, or 2.5, whatever. I haven't done since I started, but I needed to. I needed a break. I needed to kind of reset everything, and it's New Year's, which is all about resetting. This is the 150th episode of the Spent the Rent podcast, which is something I'm extremely proud of. And over the last 2 years or so, roughly, I've been working with the Democratic Party of Lane County, and you host all the meetings that I attend as a precinct committee person. And so I thought it would be great to talk to you more at length about why you got into local government and you know, what it is that makes you passionate about the work you do. So thanks again for doing this.
Sure, no problem.
So first of all, let's just get right into it. Irene Henjum, like I had said before, House District 12 Precinct Chair for the Democratic Party of Lane County. I'm probably going to say DPLC from now on. When did you get involved in local politics in Oregon?
In Oregon, I think it was probably in the 1990s during I think it was the No on 9 campaign. Oregon went through a whole bunch of anti-LGBTQ ballot measures back then. And so fighting those, that was my first active campaign. And then I also, when Obama ran for president, that was when I got like the most involved.
Yeah, that was definitely, for me, I'm, a little bit younger. The Obama campaign was the first time I actually felt like there was something promising for hope. We learned a lot about the challenges of getting stuff done in a two-party system,
Totally.
With Obama, but I still think he was a great president.
Oh, he's awesome.
And I miss being able to see the president on Ellen,
I know.
Whatever. Joe Biden's just not as personable, but
no.
So
he's an awesome guy, but he's not camera ready all the time.
No, I think, we'll get into it a little bit about the national stuff, but really what me and you, our focus is so much on local stuff, and I think that sometimes when people hear the word Democrat, they're like, they think immediately about the Obamas and the Bidens, and they forget about the Patrick Stutzes and the Irene Henjums, the people that are doing stuff locally that are great. And that's why I started this show. And has been a benefit of the show. So you talked about your motivation, in the 90s. It's funny because a lot of young LGBT people in the community don't realize, that's not that they don't realize. I don't think that they get the full scope of just what we were facing back in those days.
Totally.
And I say we because my mom was a lesbian, and it's something I'm extremely passionate about. And it is also for me something that got me motivated to get more involved. Who are some of your political influences? Let's start with just nationally, like big scope, and then we'll go local. So who are some of your political influences nationally?
Well, I have to say, first of all, the biggest political influence in my life was my mom.
Yeah?
She used to take my brother and I with her campaigning when we were kids. And she worked for a lot of different campaigns. We grew up in South Dakota, which being a Democrat in South Dakota has always been really challenging. But my mom, she's probably my biggest political hero.
And in South Dakota, you have to get 4 votes to win an election, right? So,
yeah, basically.
No. And 3 of them are Republican, and then it was your mom. No,
basically.
No. Yeah. Well, that's cool. So, and in those days, it was a lot of knocking on doors and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about duties as a precinct chair. I was Googling and just kind of doing some research, and one of the notes that I wrote down that I really thought was cool, it just says ordinary people doing the real work. So people that are just your average, these are volunteer positions, and I mean, your work is primarily within the Democratic Party, but they're doing work for people across the board. And
Totally.
And the big thing is turning out voters. So knocking on doors, pre-COVID, we haven't really done that much since COVID. But then phone banks, which I'm bad about. I'm very open about this, the phone banks where you're calling people constantly, I'm bad at it. The minute that people
You're not alone.
Yeah, it's hard. I know it's effective because you wouldn't do it. I mean, I know there's a lot of analytics.
Yeah, it's the second most effective way of getting a hold of people. Obviously, knocking on doors is the most effective way to turn out a voter. But then I think after that, it's probably phone banking. And I think nowadays text banks are more common, which I think are even more effective than phone banking in some ways, because you get a higher rate of, I don't know, contact or whatever.
I just worry with those kind of mediums that you're only reaching the people that are already doing it, that are already voting, because then it disenfranchises the people that are maybe kind of on the fence if they even care. It's not that they don't care; it's that they feel like they can't, their vote doesn't matter or whatever else.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It's difficult. What are some of the other duties as a precinct chair that maybe people may be unaware of?
For me, I think it's the most is organizing the other precinct people and finding ways to plug them into volunteer opportunities, because really turning out voters is our main job, really.
Right. Yeah, I think it's really inspiring to me. I think I was talking to Zach Bassett about this, and he was saying something about the Democratic Party, and I was like, I think that you have to listen to the episode, but we were talking about, like, there was this kind of idea of how people are, and I'm like, no, man, I've told people, like, I'm not going to do these things that you want me to do, and people are like, no, that's fine. We want a really big umbrella. And
totally.
And that's the thing that I was a little nervous about, because I signed up to do this, and then I'm like, how much do I really want to commit? I really want to just bump elbows and meet some people, network, and just do what I can do, bring what I can do. And I felt like you, more than anybody, made that perfectly clear that that's totally acceptable. And
it is.
And I really appreciate that, because people think that when you get involved in local politics, that you need to become this person that other people are. And it's like, no, you need to bring what you bring to the table. And so that's probably a lot of what you do, is trying to keep people from dipping out when they're getting a little down on themselves. There's a lot of psychology behind it, And so,
oh yeah, totally.
And the meetings I think are adorable when you're running them, because you're like, I don't know how this works.
I'm so bad. I am the worst.
Let's talk about that for now. Zoom meetings. I was going to do this later, but this is a good segue. Everything has switched to Zoom, because of COVID. What are some of the pros and cons that you've seen?
Oh, the biggest pro is it's easier to go to a meeting for most people, because you can just sit in your own living room and attend a meeting. And you can also do other things while you're at a meeting, kind of a multitask thing. Like just turn off your camera and you can, you can
step away. Do you think that there's more civic participation, especially with young people, because of this, because of the access that people that actually like technology? That
I think so.
Yeah, that's what I've seen. I mean, I have joined this committee since COVID hit, and so I have never been to an in-person meeting. And they've talked about, I see the excitement on your face when you talk about, like, oh, we're probably going to do one soon, and I'm always like, I don't want you guys to know how short I am.
No. Funny. That is so funny.
No, but I just really prefer the setup, doing it online.
Yeah, I like it too. And I consider myself an introverted person. So, in some ways, if you're an introvert, Zoom meetings are awesome.
Yeah. My dad tells me that church, he doesn't do it on Zoom. I don't know how he does it, but it's online. It's a stream. And he said that at first he was kind of hesitant. And then he was like, it's really nice, because then I don't have to shake hands with people for 2 hours. And he's like, I can just get it done and go on about my day. And obviously with COVID, you don't want to be shaking everybody's hand, but
I think it's going to continue to be part of all organizations going forward, because I think it's convenient.
I think so.
For people. And I think we're going to have to acknowledge that.
I think so. And I think it gives access. And there's always equity issues with internet, but we're working as a community to make sure that everyone has access to it. Mm-hmm. I know the city council meetings. I mean, I've been to a couple of those virtually, and I would have probably never done that. So
exactly. Because you have to go physically down there and sit there for the whole 2 hours or whatever, and you can attend the meeting online. And I think it increases civic participation.
Totally. How can we get more people involved, especially young people?
Technology. I think you've you're right on, with this, like the podcast idea and just any kind of social media. That's how we get the younger people involved. We
Yeah.
gotta, I don't know, we gotta move into the modern age.
Yeah, TikTok is crazy. And, I mean, you can do a lot in small clips, but I prefer more of the nuanced conversation. And I feel like we need to get back to more of the nuanced, deeper, longer conversations about politics, because I think that we need to listen to each other a lot better. And instead of doing these soundbite,
Totally.
someone said it like, in today's political landscape on the internet, on social media, everybody's just trying to look to dunk on each other. You
Oh
know,
yeah, that is so true. Oh
and
yeah.
so it's like we need to find a way to actually listen to each other. Maybe that was more possible in person, and I'm interested to see, long term. But yeah, I mean, Mayor Sean Van Gordon and I, Mayor of Springfield, have talked a lot about civic participation and how to get the young people involved. And the big thing that I see is just make them feel heard. Instead of just talking at people, involving them and making them feel heard, because that's how I feel. I mean, if I feel like I'm being heard, then I'm more willing to just engage and listen and go deeper with it. So now this is a big year. This is why I wanted to have you on. 2022 is an election year, and depending on where you fall, of course, you're going to feel like your hair is going to be on fire and that this is going to be the end of everything if it doesn't go the certain way. And who knows?
Yeah.
It's every time. And I think people are so exhausted. So that's going to be even more challenging for people like you and me that are going to be having to persuade people to at least consider candidates or ballot measures or whatnot. What issues do you think are the most important heading into the 2022 election for the Democratic Party?
Well, I think we need to just push hard on emphasizing legislation and actions that make people's lives better and easier. I think that Build Back Better Act needs to get passed. We need paid family leave. We need, the federal minimum wage needs to increase. We've got to push those real economic issues that are important to people, but also voting rights. Our democracy is seriously under attack right now. Unfortunately, one of the two main political parties doesn't seem to think everybody should have access to voting.
It's pretty wild. I don't understand why someone would want. Well, I mean, I know why, but I don't understand why someone would push for less voting. But it's a scare tactic, because if you challenge the turnout, if you challenge people from voting and you say that, you're like, oh, we have all these illegals and all these dead people voting. There was like 4, and what it allows you to do is then if it doesn't go your way, then you can cry foul after the fact. And it's so transparent. And now what we're seeing on the national level with Secretary of States being put in power that are going to be basically willing to throw out the election, it's going to be really scary. So far,
that's pretty scary.
Yeah, it is pretty scary. And that's where it's difficult, because I don't want to have this doom and gloom attitude, because It's not going to pull anybody else in. It's putting us deeper into our corners. So that's tough. When people that you're talking to and you're knocking on doors and you're phone banking and you're talking to the voter locally, do you find yourself sometimes having to kind of separate the national and the local government? Because a lot of times people they associate the Democratic Party, like I said before, with these big names that, like Nancy Pelosi, for example. Nancy Pelosi is extremely polarizing. And,
Totally.
And obviously locally, Kate Brown is as well. There's a lot of people that are like, nope, they're just out. And those people, you may never get them. But sometimes can you find ways to find common ground with maybe more, we'll say with moderate voters, people that they're the swing voters, the ones that are the most important. What kind of tactics do you use? I mean, is there a way that you can kind of be like, yeah, I kind of agree with you on the national stuff, but on the local stuff, what can we do to find common ground? Is that kind of something that you have to try to find out?
Yeah, I think every conversation you have is unique, and you get a feel for what the person, you listen for starters, you listen to what they believe, and you want them to know that you hear them and you hear their concerns. And I just kind of remind people that all politics is local, and that you and I and every registered Democrat is in Oregon. We are the Democratic Party of Oregon.
Yeah.
You know,
it's different. Yeah, because there's candidates that a lot of people across the board like DeFazio. Okay, so Peter DeFazio is somebody that I have friends that, of course, there's going to be people that despise any politician, and that's gonna happen. But you have people that are kind of off the left and right paradigm. They're like, I don't like either. That are kind of on board with him because Peter DeFazio ran as a Democrat, yes, but he ran as an independent. I mean, his campaign was about independent thinking.
Totally.
How difficult is it going to be to replace him? I mean, it's massive.
It's going to be difficult to replace him. I think when I heard that he wasn't running again, I had like a gut punch kind of feeling like,
Yeah, especially this year,
Yeah, because it's going to be a tough year because traditionally that first congressional election in a president's term doesn't go well for the party in office. There's only been a couple times in history where that hasn't been true. And I think one of them was Roosevelt and the other one was George W. Bush and it was right after 9/11.
Right.
So, history points to it not going well for the Democratic Party. And so I think I was just like, oh God, the last thing we need is to have to, have a new candidate out there. But on the other hand, the district, Congressional District 4, after redistricting it's more blue than it was before. So it's going to be easier for a Democratic candidate than it always was for Peter DeFazio, because I believe the part of Douglas County and Jackson County are now moved into CD2 with Eastern Oregon. And then CD4 bumps up into Lincoln County. So it will be easier for a Democrat. And I suspect we're going to have some really good candidates running. I know Val Hoyle, who is the current labor commissioner for Oregon, has announced. And I really like Val.
And she's probably, as of right now, probably the favorite. I mean, it's hard to say that, this early on, but she's got a name recognition, definitely, for sure.
She probably is. But you never know.
No, exactly.
I mean, Jenny, my wife's mom, when they were talking about it, because I believe that, I can't remember her name. I'm blanking on it. She represents the Corvallis area in the Oregon House, is also announced that she's going to run or is likely to run. And Jenny's mom hadn't heard of Val Hoyle, even though she's our labor secretary. So,
well, I mean, I wouldn't know a lot about her either, to be honest with you. I mean, this is kind of why I do this show, is because not only do I get to learn about it, but there's a lack in information, not lack of information. There's a lack of stuff that grabs you, it's just a lot of local government is so campy for people. And they're just like, it feels like class, it feels like school, and they just don't like it.
Totally.
And so, people like me and people like Thomas Huda, we're trying to introduce people like you to the community so that they understand that there's great people doing great work, and they're just like everyone else, and then also that people can get involved. I mean, that, if you're interested in becoming a precinct committee person, all you got to do is reach out to me or anybody in the Democratic Party of Lane County, and we'll figure out how to get you on board. It's been awesome to see the circle grow. I mean, I remember watching a friend like Isaiah Wagner become an alternate delegate, I believe. I mean, it's really cool stuff that's happening for average people, and so that's really good. I am going to have, I hope I'm saying it right, Andrew Kalick.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be on the podcast in February. He's running for Congress. And he came into the barbershop, and my buddy George cut his hair, but he was talking about how he's going to run, and I'm like, hey, I want to get you on, because I want to get as much opportunity, especially for the up and coming candidates because they bring a fresh perspective.
Totally.
And so that'll be really cool. And then Chris Wigg is going to come on, and we're going to talk about redistricting a lot more. I'm going to try to have him. He's got some strong opinions about it. Chris Wigg is the chair of the Democratic Party of Lane County, and he's got some strong opinions about it that I'm sure he'd be willing to share. So that'll be really good. And so we had talked about some of your biggest influences. You said your mom. I want to get one in history, someone that's no longer with us, and then I'll tell you one of mine. So in history, but modern history, you know, who is somebody that inspires you, not just politically, but as a human being, or however you want to go with that?
Well, politically, I would say George McGovern.
Yeah.
Just because he was my senator in South Dakota when I was growing up, and then he ran for president in 1972 against Richard Nixon, and as the anti-war candidate, you know. So George McGovern is one for sure.
I think a big one for me is always been Bobby Kennedy.
Yeah.
And because, you know, YouTube has allowed me to go and sit back and just close my eyes, put on some Bobby Kennedy speeches, and kind of visualize the 60s, because it was so, I mean, it's very well documented, everything in the 60s, even though there's all kinds of conspiracies and stuff about Kennedy and all this, or JFK, and probably Bobby and all that stuff too. But just incredible wordsmith, and so deep with the pain that he was feeling, because the speeches I'm talking about, Bobby was giving speeches when he was running for president, and he had just announced his run, and he had already witnessed his brother being assassinated. He had already witnessed Martin Luther King being assassinated. So this is a really interesting time period in our history. But yeah, locally, there's a lot of awesome people that I wouldn't even want to drop one name because I'd leave one out. But the one thing for me doing this show, I've really learned just how much empathy and how much passion people have for our local community. I mean, people like, I'm going to just drop one name. It's not like there's a competition, but Kevin Cronin, getting to know Kevin Cronin on the episode and the work that he does with, you know, affordable housing. That dude is so passionate, you know, and so I think it's really cool to get to learn more about these people, because there's just so much good work going on. And I get naysayers, and I had someone attacking me on that. It was a different episode, but they were basically saying, like, I was doing the one with shelter care, and someone chimed in and they're like, none of this is going to matter till we can rein in corporate greed. And I'm like, what do you want me to do about, you know, Walmart and Amazon and Springfield, Oregon? I mean, I'm only doing my part so that we can, yes, it's Band-Aid solutions, but we have to do something today, you know? So I don't know. I'm getting off the point.
Yeah, we just have to keep working. I mean, you got to keep moving forward, you know? Yeah. You just do.
Yeah. So now, if somebody's interested in becoming a precinct committee person is kind of, you know, it's like a volunteer plus. I mean, you're basically just working with the Democratic Party, and your job is you'll have access to, you know, the people in your neighborhood, if you're part of the neighborhood leader program. If people are interested in doing that, where would they go?
They could go to the DPLC website. I believe there's a place to sign up and say you're interested in volunteering. They can get a hold of me.
It's pretty
I could give you my email.
Yeah, the information is very accessible on the website. I really encourage a lot of people listening to do it, because, like I had said before, it's a big umbrella. Going to the meetings, you've been extremely gracious and welcoming, and there's some heavy hitters in these meetings that I'm in, people that have been involved in a long time, and it's intimidating at first, because here I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm so new to this. This is the first time I've ever been involved with these meetings, and everybody's been really welcoming, you know, and it's funny that people that are the two most involved in our meetings are newer to the area, which is really good to see, you know, and and they'll know who they are. And so, and they're really, it's really good to see, because there's people that are like, how does this work? And they're asking questions, and I'm like, you know, thank you for asking that, because I don't know the answer either, you know? And so it's really cool to sit back and watch. So we're going to change gears a little bit. We're going to talk about your art. So so your art, it's Impressionist art. Is that right? Yeah.
I would say so, yeah.
The website, which is Irene Henjum fineart.com, which will be in the show notes. The website says bold, colorful, experimental, and that when you were a kid, every inch of your bedroom wall was covered in drawings. Tell me about your art and why you do it and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I do it because I just have to.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're a musician, so you are going to understand this. Getting in the zone, that where time just falls away and you're so focused on what you're doing. I think that's why I do art. It's just, I have to do it.
Yeah. It's like meditation. It's therapy for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. So, your website looks good. And, you said off air that this is a new website. This is kind of a new.
It is.
Yeah. Is that something you're doing yourself or?
It's hosted through a organization called Art Storefronts.
Yeah.
So it's websites for artists.
Have you done a lot of the art walks and those kind of things?
It's been a while since I have done those. Years ago, I was involved with the New Zone Gallery when I first moved to Oregon, like in the early 90s. And, in the past, I've been involved with the Emerald Art Center, that kind of thing, and gone to some of those, but it's on my radar to start doing more of that again.
Right. Yeah. I've gone to a couple art walks downtown and again, it's like, it's not normally my thing, but it's neat to go check out. One of the things I did get to do this year is when we went to Ireland, we went to the National Gallery of Ireland,
Jealous.
which it was free. And we walk in and I'm like, my girlfriend's great. Cause I'm like, I want to go check this out, but I don't want to be here long. She's like, as soon as you get bored, we'll leave. And I'm like, perfect. And we were there for about an hour, but we're walking through and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a Monet.
I know, right?
That's a Picasso, and that's a Van Gogh. And I'm just like, this is insane. So, I mean, and also just how the difference to me between something that's just magnificent art and just poo-poo, for in someone's mind, I have no idea, because I look at some of it and I'm like, I like this one right here. And it was like age 12, and I mean, I just, what you like. But I do think that what I've seen the kind of work that you do, and I can see how it would be something where you just escape, because you probably don't necessarily have a plan when you're doing the pictures. It's just kind of the way that the website says is that it's familiar, comfortable shapes, blended with color and all that kind of stuff. So it just goes where it goes. And that's really therapeutic. I could see how that would be amazing. Yeah, so if you're interested in checking out your art, I did use one of them for the flyer.
Sweet.
It's Irene Henjum, fineart.com, and then it's in the show notes. So Irene Henjum, thank you so much. This is going to be a huge year. We're going to be doing a lot of work, and I wanted to get you on early because I know you're going to be busy.
Very.
Yeah, so anybody listening, if you're interested in becoming a precinct committee person, message me. Message Irene, go to the Democratic Party of Lane County's website, DPLC, I think .org probably. I'm not sure.
And everybody's welcome.
Anybody's welcome. And, like I had said, big umbrella. We want as many different types of people as we can get.
Totally.
Obviously, we would love to have marginalized voices.
Yes.
That's something that it makes everything better. I live in Springfield, and I'm incredibly proud of the representation changing, the way that there's more people being heard from. I'm going to be doing a podcast in a couple weeks with both Corey Rodley and Damian Pitts.
Yeah,
and that'll be
That's going to be so good.
Joint episode. Yeah, they're both on city council, and Damian being a black man, Corey Rodley being a lesbian woman, I think is going to be great, because this is something that in the 90s you may not have seen, and we had talked about the changes. No, so Springfield is really evolving. And I also think that Springfield's a different thing because it's not so... People think that there's this extremist right, and yes, that exists, but there's also extremist left. And I think that for the most part, I'm saying in Springfield, and for the most part, there's a lot of people that are actually willing to have a conversation and be respectful to each other. And I think when you have stuff that's not so... the pendulum isn't so strong one way or the other in a local area. It basically, it keeps people a little bit more honest. I'm not a huge fan of the two-party system, but there is some benefits. Because when we go too far, one of the things I see with Eugene is there's a lot of activist politicians. And
activism is good. Everything is all good. It all has a role.
Yeah.
You know, activists help push the dialogue.
That's a fact. That's actually a really good way of looking at it, is that it pushes the dialogue. That's true.
Because it needs to be. Otherwise, nothing ever changes.
I had a guy one time tell me that he's like, sometimes we have to push for more than we want because then we'll get what we want. And I'm like, oh, that's true. But you have to pick your battles too, because sometimes you can disenfranchise people.
You do also have to pick your battles.
It's such a balance, balancing act. Well, Irene Henjum, thank you so much for doing this. This is the 150th episode of the Spent the Rent podcast. I'm going to end this with a song. And since it's New Year's, I chose a song I made way back in the day, like 2009. This is me, Patty Rose. And I did this song with a buddy, SlyGuy. This is the song New Day.
In the back of conceptual thought, I wonder why, like money I was bought. Forgot about my placement, my identities. Can't put an end to the casualties. Casualties and casual ties make it hard to sympathize. The families failed tries, all try to empathize.
I'm feeling good today, there's not much that could bother me. Sometimes irritated, but now addicted to the finer things. Finally thinking in a positive way. And so far it was a line when he says it's a blessed day. A blessed day it is, it's a blessing to be alive. And I feel sorry for the people that won't give themselves a try. Give yourself a break, compliment your own reflection. Daily affirmation is the start of a new conception.
It's a new day, new start. Welcome to the light, don't gotta hide in the dark. It's a new day, new start. Welcome to the light, don't gotta hide in the dark. It's a new day, new start. Welcome to the light, don't gotta hide in the dark. It's a new day, new start. Welcome to the light, don't gotta hide in the dark. A countdown to conclusion, found it through illusion. Blood spills on your hands, the government's demands. And one nation under the eye of an all-knowing spectator. The problem is when you die, it's not because of the creator. Suffrage in our souls, apathy has taken control. Like sheep we've walked as men, I ask just when is when. Like sheep we've walked as men, and I ask when is when. Like sheep we've walked as men, and I ask when is when. It's a new day, new start. Welcome to the light, don't gotta